Hung Cao, U.S. Navy retired admiral. He's right for Senate in Virginia. That's the Republic. Of course, Admiral, how are you, sir?
Mike, come on, don't give me the stolen valor like Tim Kaine. I'm a Navy captain, and that's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, he passed the test. He passed the test. That was a stolen valor test right there, Mr. Cow. You passed with flying colors. Why not just let it go, though, sir? Why not? We all misspeak now and again. Maybe you just let that one go and let people think you're an admiral. What's the problem?
No, I mean, they sometimes people hear that I'm in special operations, and they're like, oh, a Navy SEAL. I'm like, no, I correct them immediately. No, I'm a deep sea diver, and I'm a EOD technician. I defuse bombs, and I dive deep, and that's what I do. I don't want to steal away the valor of my frogmen brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, like you were doing really lame stuff, like deep sea diving and detonating bombs under the water. Not the cool things like the Navy SEALs. I do want to ask you about that in a moment. But all joking aside, on this stolen valor thing. By the way, Captain Hung Cao, U.S. Navy. Do you think he lied on purpose? And can you help us understand the problem with that?
Oh, absolutely, he lied on purpose. He had coins. His congressional coin had a command sergeant major stripes on there. He did not retire as a command sergeant major. He didn't even retire as a sergeant major. He retired as a master sergeant. We all know that. He knew that. And then not only that, he lied about being in Iraq. And here's the thing that I never understood. And then yesterday, his former battalion officer, his battalion commander, said it. It's like, if you put in a retirement, an officer has to sign for it, and they can always do a stop loss of the unit's about to deploy, but his battalion commander gladly signed it. So, it's pretty damning when they said that they're better off without him than they are with him. And you know what? I think America's better off without him than they are with him, too.
What do you say, this comes up, and the right-wing ecosphere is talking about it. Actually, but it is making its way on CNN and all the rest, although they're now just saying, oh, we misspoke, no big deal. What do you say to someone who says, oh, this doesn't matter, let's get back to the issues? And we will. I got lots of questions for you. But is this an issue? Does this matter? Should it matter?
Yes, if he's lying about that, what else is he lying about, right? If you're lying about your service, then what else are you lying about? Look, when I started running for U.S. Senate, when I'm running right now against the other Tim from Minnesota, equally, big loser. He's also a governor, and wrecked his state also, and he was also a failed vice presidential candidate. So Tim Kaine.
Wow.
And what they did is I said, hey, look, Tim Kaine and I received the same government paycheck from the American people for 30 years, except he's a millionaire and I have scars. So then the left-wing media came after me saying, what are your scars? Like, if you got wounded, how come you don't have a Purple Heart? Like, wait a minute. Are you saying the millions of 100% disabled veterans that don't have a Purple Heart are lying about it? They wanted me to, get this, write down every single time I've been outside the wire, how many times and when and where I received fire. I mean, this is ridiculous. And they don't question this guy for 20 years.
Wow, that's an amazing comparison. So you make a statement that's a figure of speech or true. I mean, do you have physical scars or is it a figure of speech?
Oh no, seriously. I mean, look, I even put out an op-ed saying, look, my biggest scar is that I have TBI. I mean, I got blown up so many times. And in fact, the one time I remember was on my 39th birthday. I was blown out of Iraq, and I saw stars for a while, and then years later, as I'm going up for retirement, they did a brain scan. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you got severe traumatic brain injury. You got some things going on there." And I was addressing the fact that, hey, this is why so many veterans have PTSD. This is why we have so many issues, and we need to address the unseen wounds of war. But again, the left-wing media just wants to go after the fact that, where's this Purple Heart? Well, you know what? Back in those days, we just rubbed some dirt on it and kept going because we had a war to win.
This is an amazing angle of the story. This is so incredible. So even if what you said was a figure of speech, like, oh, he's got millions and I have scars, even if that was just a figure of speech, that's not stolen valor. But it's true, you do. But they wanted to come back and say, show me the scars. What scars? Where'd you get them? Day and time. I need pictures. Show them to me. Yet this guy can go around for decades saying he's this, that, whatever. I went to there. I went to Iraq, and they got nothing. And then they wash it all away by saying, he misspoke. That's incredible. What a double standard. Two-tier policing, as we talked about in the last hour. All right, enough of him. Let's talk about your state. Again, we're talking to Captain Hung Cao, U.S. Navy. He's running for Senate in Virginia. Sir, how did... who's the governor? What's his name?
Glenn Youngkin.
That's right. How did Youngkin beat Terry McAuliffe in 2021? Terry McAuliffe, a known name, right? So there's the big name. Actually, Glenn Youngkin probably had less name recognition. Beat him by 2 points, I believe. And it was a big election in Virginia in 2021. All the big state offices flipped to Republican. Big deal. But then Biden wins by 10 points. And Tim Kaine, who you're running against, won his re-election in 2018 with 16 points. How could that be? What's happening there?
Well, in 2020, yes, Biden won the Commonwealth of Virginia by 10 points. Then the next year, Glenn Youngkin went up against a former governor, Terry McAuliffe, who misspoke, right? I've got a lot of air quotes on right now. He misspoke and said that parents had no right in their kids' education.
Yes,
and so that's why Glenn Youngkin was elected. And then in 2022, even though, I ran in the 10th Congressional District, which includes Loudoun County. I didn't win, but I moved that needle 13% from a Biden plus 19 down to 6 points, which is why they asked me to run for U.S. Senate. But we gained one seat in the House of Representatives for the Commonwealth of Virginia. In 23, we had statewide elections for House of Delegates and the state Senate. And even though we didn't win because of gerrymandering, there are just as many Republicans that came out in 23 in an off year than they did in previous years. And there's just as many Republicans that showed up then than they did, that Democrats did. And that's why we're going to win this year. Because I'm telling you right now, the Southwest of Virginia is almost like the Missouri in the presidential election. If the Southwest comes out, we've already won this race.
How do you get the Southwest? How do you get the country to come out?
Well, President Trump's going to do that. They are excited for him. As you drive through the Southwest, they still have Trump 2020 signs out there. They just changed the number to 2024. They love him down there. He's the guy that's going to make things happen. Look, guys like Tim Kaine, who was a governor of Virginia, and nobody remembers what he's done. Like, honestly, the only thing people remember is this guy got stuck on I-95 with a bottle of Dr. Pepper during a snowstorm. He's a goofy dude that just hasn't done anything for Virginia.
I've always asked this question about what state has the greatest delta between city and country. And the difference between Washington, D.C. and, I'm looking at a map, Abingdon in the southwest. I mean, that's just like, those are different planets. But there's no people there. As Tim Walz said, that's where the rocks and the cows are. Captain, how do we get those people to vote?
We just get them excited to come out. Look, I've been in a lot of rallies with the governor this past week in Bristol, and then with President Trump, with J.D. Vance, he came down to Radford. I mean, you should see the crowds building up. I mean, the crowds are wrapping around the building, outside the building in Richmond and around the corner. In Chesapeake, we had 15,000 people. We were expecting only 9,000 with President Trump. I mean, people are just excited. You have to give them somebody that they're excited about, and they're also excited about me. Look, I came here as a refugee from Vietnam. I fought for our country for 25 years in Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, and this is not a misspoken, right? I actually fought there, and I'm serving now because they're turning this country into what I ran away from. They're turning this country into a communist state, and we see that. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are both commies. They're just downright commies. And in fact, they make Bernie Sanders look like a moderate.
Speak to me, tell us about your refuginess from, you said, Vietnam. How did that happen? And then how did that make you love America? But then how does that also impact your views on immigration?
Well, let's go back to what you said at the very beginning of this show. You said, America is the greatest country in the world. And it is. Look, we have an immigration problem that China and Russia don't, because you know what, it sucks over there. Nobody wants to go to China and Russia. Everybody wants to come here. And Vietnam fell because of a brand new senator named Joe Biden stopped all funding to South Vietnam. They were fighting on their own. And, in 1973, U.S. troops pulled out, but then in 75, they ran out of money and ran out of ammunition, and so the country collapsed. And my father who was a high Vietnamese official. He was a deputy minister of agriculture, was placed on a hit list. And so we had to leave because, well, we were allergic to lead, right? And so we had to leave the country and came here. The United States brought us in. And, you know, I wanted to pay back the generosity of the most amazing country in the world with my service to this country in Navy Special Operations.
So that's real asylum. That's a real asylum claim. Like there's actual, if you stay where you are, then you will be murdered by the government that's now in power. That's an actual claim for asylum, not we were poor.
No, when you come here because there's nowhere else to go, or except for death, then yes, you come here. But, you know, you still come here, and if you want the American dream, if you want to make something of yourself, you first have to obey the American laws and embrace the American culture. And we did that. We came here and we became, you know, lawyers, doctors, engineers, and business owners. And we made some of ourselves.
So, again, last hour we were talking about what's going on in England and the problems there. And the root of it is mass immigration for quite a long time now. And then, also, lack of assimilation. How much of that is a problem here in America / in Virginia? What do we do about that?
Well, you know, it used to be when I went to school here, you did this Pledge of Allegiance, and now they don't do that anymore. We have to, you know, make people proud of this country. When students are flying Hamas flags and shouting "Death to America," then we have a problem with our education system, and we need to start, you know, with the parents at home and teaching our kids. Look, my wife and I homeschooled our kids for 12 years because we knew that the education. You know, when I came to this country, my mom said, they can take away your money, they can take away your position in life, but they can never take away what's in your head. And that's why education was so important. And with my wife and myself, we moved around so much, and also watching like places like Loudoun County where the school board was physically attacking parents and using the FBI to call them domestic terrorists. We're like, yeah, no, we're going to teach our own kids. And you know what? The proof is in the pudding because my son is a straight-A student at the United States Naval Academy. He's entering his junior year, and he's doing great. And it means that we know how to teach our kids.
It's wild you mentioned that Terry McAuliffe clip from 2021 where he said, do you remember the exact line?
Oh, no, I don't remember.
Yeah, the gist of it was...
not listen to what that guy said.
The gist of it was, as you said, you know, we're in charge of your kids, and we know what's best for your kids. And that's what made him lose that race. But they all think that. All the Democrats think that. They just don't say it out loud. They don't make the mistake of actually saying it. But clearly, all of these Democrats think that they own your kids and knows what's best for your kids and want to then indoctrinate your kids or keep them ignorant to reality. Do you share that assessment?
Oh, absolutely. That's the communist way, right? Lenin said that, you know, give me your kids and you know, for 4 years, and I'll have them for life. And that's the thing, that they believe that the way into our families is and to change a mind is through the schools and through the children. I mean, that's the Mao's way also. It's the Cultural Revolution. They take the kids in and they have the kids snitch on their parents, right? Oh, where have we heard that? Oh, in Minnesota, when Tim Walz is saying, hey, snitch on your neighbors. What's next? Snitching on your parents.
Yes, absolutely. What's the worst thing about Tim Kaine, the person you're running against?
Well, the thing is that, like I said, I don't know what his strengths are. The guy just goes along, but honestly, he is also a downright communist. He went to Honduras and for a missions trip for 9 months and came back all, you know, socialized. And he believes in these things. He believes in the fact that, you know, people are just, you know, people are just downright good, and we just need to feel bad for him. That's what he was as a lawyer. He just took care of people that said, well, you know, I felt bad for this guy, and you know, we can rehabilitate him. That's Tim Walz. I'm sorry, Tim Kaine. It's a Tim guy.
Yeah.
Literally, they're both the Tim guys. They're both from Minnesota. They're both left-wing, you know, socialist communists. They're both failed governors, and they're both going to be failed VP candidates.
Wow, that is really wild. They kind of look alike too. That's interesting.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, that is really bizarre. Actually, that's like a glitch in the Matrix. Bizarre. That's so weird. Yeah, it's a weird trivia question. Like, who Hillary even chose as her vice presidential candidate? Most people wouldn't even be able to pick up that name, Tim Kaine. Let's make sure that Tim Walz is just as forgettable
Yeah, and you know what? In a year, they're going to forget who Tim Walz is also.
Yeah,
That's the thing. Like, these guys are very forgettable. They're just milk toast.
That's great. I got to ask you about your time in the Navy. Deep sea diver. How deep did you go?
Almost 300 feet in mixed gas. I recovered John F. Kennedy Jr., his wife and his sister-in-law. I recovered the USS Monitor. Remember the ironclads from the Civil War? And then
wait, what happened? Wait, say all that again. What happened? What'd you do?
Okay, so John F. Kennedy Jr., his wife and his sister-in-law crashed off of Martha's Vineyard, and I recovered their aircraft in 1999. That's I think we just passed the 25-year anniversary a few weeks ago. And then remember the ironclads from the Civil War, the Monitor and Merrimack? I recovered the USS Monitor, parts of it. It's the first Civil War, the first ironclad in the United States, in the United States Navy, and so we recovered parts of that. I recovered other aircraft that crashed in the ocean, and then as an explosive ordnance disposal technician, I defused bombs for our SEAL teams, our Special Forces teams in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Somalia.
Wow. When you go 300 feet deep, how long does it take you before you can come up?
Well, we do what's called surface decompression, and so we do about an hour in the water column and decompression, and then an hour and a half in the chamber. So they, at 40 feet, they pull you up and over, and they strip you completely down, and they throw you in a chamber, and you have 5 minutes from the moment you go from 40 feet to 30 feet in the chamber, and they, and they do the rest of the decompression there, where it's more.
Interesting. So so it's not just you come up slowly. That's not, you go into an actual chamber that simulates the decompression.
Oh yeah, it's a pressure chamber. So first of all, at each stage you start. I forget what the protocol is for 300 feet, but you go up. You stop at 70 feet for a few minutes, then 60 feet for a few minutes, then 50 feet, then 40 feet. Then they take you up and over, and they pull you up as fast as they can, and then not as fast as that's safe. And then they strip you completely down, throw in your pressure chamber, and then you bring it back down to depth, and then you do the rest of the decompression in the hyperbaric chamber.
Is it terrifying when you're 300 feet below the ocean?
Well, it's very dark down there. It's very hard to see anything. I mean, some of our divers have gone as far as 1,000 feet. The saturation divers, that takes 11 days to decompress from that one. And sometimes you can't see anything underwater at that depth.
What do you mean 11 days to decompress? What is that? What do you mean 11 days?
So they put you in a chamber underwater, and they take you up and over, and they bring you up 1 foot an hour. Every hour you go up 1 foot and you decompress, and that takes about 11 days to decompress from 1,000 feet. Look, these men have done amazing things for this country. We won the Cold War because of these saturation divers. There's a lot of things that they've done underwater that they'll never be able to speak about. But they won the Cold War for us single-handedly.
Saturation divers, never heard of that. What's going through your mind when you're detonating a bomb right in front of your face?
Well, we try to get as far away as possible. There's a fragmentation and blast radius that we try to stay outside, but let's just face it, the pressure wave continues, and that's why a lot of these bomb techs get a lot of injuries and traumatic brain injury, because that pressure wave goes through, and it goes through your soft cells, soft tissues, and everything else, and cumulatively it does build up problems within your body. And that's why I'm such a big proponent to take care of traumatic brain injury and PTSD for our troops, because the same kind of pressure, it's very cumulative, right? And it can be in a kill house where you're practicing shooting and everything else. For the Navy SEALs, for example, it reverberates in your brain, and it's cumulative, and it builds up after time. Doing these breacher charges, blowing things up, those are things that really that impact the body over time.
Yeah.
And so they want me to show every single time I've been blown up or I've been exposed to a blast.
That's amazing, the difference. Last question, and to bring this all around. Are you worried, because we're all worried about our country, right? That's why you're running and still serving. Are you worried about our military specifically not appealing to the best and the brightest and the best that we have in this country, and our recruitment goals, and just our young people in general, just disengaged, disconnected, not raised properly, not like raised on TikTok and just being weak in all the ways, whether it's spiritually, emotionally, physically. Is this a concern for you as a former explosive deep sea diver guy?
Yes, absolutely. Because we're demonizing the alpha males and alpha females we need in the military. Instead, the Navy had some cross-dressing guy be a recruiter. And like, that's not what we need. We need the young men and women that are willing to rip out their own guts and eat them and ask for seconds. That's the American spirit, right? I mean, let's look at the American spirit. In World War II, every ship that was sunk in Pearl Harbor were raised back up by Navy divers, refitted for war, and sent back out to chase the same Japanese fleet, except for Arizona and Utah. But every ship was done that to show the might of the American spirit. After 9/11, we took the metal from the Twin Towers and we forged it into the USS New York. That is American power. And then look at President Trump after he got shot. He stood up, pumped his fist, and said, "Fight, fight, fight." That is essentially the American spirit. And that's what we need to harness in our military. Not cross-dressing, not anything else, not how you feel about everything else. We're going to send men and women out there to fight for this country and then bring them home as soon as we can. And that's my problem with the military, is that they try to use us for everything. Right? There's 4 levers to national power. There's diplomacy, information, military, and economic. And they only use the military. They say, well, let's go nation building. The military is not there to build nations. We're there to destroy nations. The job of building nations, that's for those pretty boys in skinny jeans and man buns at the State Department to do. The military is the sledgehammer that goes in there and gets things done, the brute force way.
I so want you to win for a lot of reasons. We talked to Tim Sheehy the other day running for Senate in Montana. Like, that should be a layup. You think, right? But it's like Montana. Like, what's Montana a Democratic senator for? But I feel like you winning in Virginia would just be such a punch in the gut to the left, and that's beautiful. We need you to win.
Look at the people that President Trump is ushering in. Right, Tim Sheehy, Navy SEAL, Sam Brown, a warrior, myself, Dave McCormick, and now J.D. Vance. He's bringing in a whole new generation of, politicians that were forged in the fire of combat and service to serve this country again. That's what President Trump is drawing out right now.
That's awesome. Where can people donate to your campaign and help out if they're in Virginia?
Yes, please go to hungforva.com. Look, I've been shot at and been blown up, and there's nothing these guys can do for me, but what I need is for your listeners to donate so I can have the ammunition to fight back against this left-wing media that wants me to enumerate and list every single time I've been outside the wire.
Yeah, that's crazy. Hung, H-U-N-G, hungforva.com. Captain Hung Cao, great to talk to you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Have a great day.